The Acolyte. Should we not talk about this?
Yeah, we covered The Mandalorian, Obi-Wan, Boba Fett, the Ahsoka series, so why not this one?
It's because we've seen all of these that I was reticent about covering another live-action Disney Star Wars show.
Well, I have a few things to say about it. Hit it! So, The Acolyte is Disney's latest Star Wars live-action series. They badly dropped the ball with the Obi-Wan series. The third season of Mando was dismal. Boba Fett was all over the place. And Ahsoka showed promise at first, but the internal logic structure and story consistency just collapsed around it.
It really feels like the writers don't understand the basics of the world around them, and just because it's sci-fi or fantasy doesn't mean you can just sidestep any kind of basic understanding of physics.
Okay, we get it. Star Wars is in a bit of a mess. It's been in a bit of a mess since The Last Jedi, mouse. They got lucky with Mando at first thanks to Baby Yoda, but so afraid were they that people would tune out once he was delivered to his fellow Jedi at the end of Season 2, that he was right back with Mando at the start of Season 3. No explanation, he was just there.
There was an explanation. The Book of Boba Fett took a detour to spend some time with Mando to explain how Baby Yoda changed his mind and didn't want to be trained as a Jedi.
Of course. Hijack another show to make a major course correction because everyone loved the Boba Fett show so much. We all watched that train wreck too.
Right, okay, so we're just bashing Disney Star Wars in general now?
It's as easy as shooting fish in a barrel.
Something stormtroopers consistently fail at.
Right. Well, The Acolyte is the latest series set 100 years before the prequels.
Yeah, and the first trailer freaked everyone out because a red lightsaber was shown, and only the Sith use red lightsabers. But it was established in the prequels that no Jedi had encountered a Sith in over 1,000 years. The fear that canon would be disregarded troubled a lot of fans.
This particular conundrum hasn't yet been resolved, but 3 episodes in, no Sith has been seen by a Jedi yet. There are, however, many other problems with this show. Some shake the foundations of Star Wars lore to its core, while others just make it clear these writers are just really bad at their craft.
Well, they do say write what you know, and no one really knows lightsabers because they're made up.
You're right, Gigi. Writing what you know is the safest form of writing. You can't get that wrong because you have supposed expertise on the matter and know what you're talking about. No research necessary.
True, and we have to accept that not everyone knows fire doesn't actually burn in space. There you go. And we shouldn't expect writers of a sci-fi show to Google, "Does fire burn in space?" They're clearly too busy creating an entire world to have time to do any of that.
Maybe it's a different kind of combustible that looks like fire but isn't?
You want to believe that? Fine. Because, to be frank, that fire in space isn't that big a deal in the overall story anyway. What's more difficult to accept is burning rocks.
Burning rocks?
Yeah, burning rocks. May sets fire to her family's compound in the 3rd episode, which is carved inside a rock face.
Guess they didn't have time to Google, "Can you set fire to a rock?" either.
The internet was probably down on that day. That piece of remarkable creativity is more problematic than the first, as it forms a crucial part of the plot, which means our writers don't understand basic physics. And that's a problem.
But it's just fantasy.
Fantasy doesn't mean whatever you can think of goes. There must be internal rules set by the writers to give their world a framework within which the audience accepts what happens. But if you throw the framework out the window whenever you feel like it, you'll inevitably lose a huge chunk of your audience.
Like when your protagonist survives a crash landing onto a planet from space.
Yeah, all she did was sit in the chair and put her arm behind her head, presumably to protect her neck. And then that's enough to survive free falling from space, apparently.
She was totally unharmed, not even a scratch.
Just like in real life. NASA should be informed. Would make re-entries much quicker and more convenient.
So we've established physics isn't the writer's forte. What about basic anatomy?
I don't think the writers have any clue about that either. It was established in The Phantom Menace that a lightsaber through the chest is a death sentence.
That's because superheated plasma would destroy any internal organs in seconds. Gruesome way to go.
Except since Disney took over, lightsabers are eminently survivable. The Grand Inquisitor survived being shish kebabbed in Obi-Wan, and Reva suffered the same injury in the same show twice, and survived twice. And so did Sabine Wren in Ahsoka. So does superheated plasma kill you, or not?
It should. With everything we know about physics and biology, it should.
And now, in The Acolyte, a Jedi gets stabbed by a small blade, and she dies on the spot.
Well, it shows Anakin should have used a small blade to kill Reva, none of that lightsaber nonsense.
And that was Carrie Ann Moss, Trinity herself, doing Trinity stuff in Star Wars, which I have to admit was pretty cool. Until she died within 5 minutes of the story opening.
Thankfully, we're getting flashbacks, so we'll see more of her.
Speaking of dying, it's established May is working for some shadowy person who wants her to kill the Jedi with her bare hands. That person even states, use steel or laser against a Jedi and you will fail. But we've just seen her kill a Jedi with a blade, thereby making a complete mockery of whatever this mysterious master is telling her. And then she kills Master Torbin, another Jedi, with poison.
To be fair, May's master didn't tell her she couldn't use poison.
Speaking of Master Torbin, Saul wants to see him immediately because he suspects someone is trying to kill him. Well, May tried to kill him the night before and she escaped through a large open skylight above him. So do the other Jedi post guards around that skylight or even close it? No.
Maybe the other Jedi don't like Torbin? Always floating with a force field around him. What a show-off.
Anyway, Saul is taken to see him, and you'd think they'd go the most direct route as it's so important. But somehow, Osha breaks off from the group, goes a different way, and gets there well before anyone else. So the writers don't understand physics, biology, and now basic directions. What exactly do they know that they can write about?
That actually goes to the crux of the matter. I know many fans are criticizing the third episode because it goes against established canon. Turns out, the twins May and Osha were apparently artificially created by their mother Anisha using the Force. But that's not actually possible according to Star Wars lore.
Heck, when the Sith tried, the Force created Anakin as a reaction against their tempering.
But there's no need to get into that, as others have explained it much better than we could.
My problem is with a basic understanding of human psychology. Irrespective of how they were created, May and Osha have been raised by a group of people who have felt persecuted by the Jedi for, ever. If you're a child raised in such an environment and you have no other contact with anyone else, as they clearly don't, you'll believe what your family tells you as being the absolute truth. You'll have no reason to doubt what you're being told. That's how cults work. That's how religions work. That's how pretty much anything works. That's why children believe in Santa Claus and everything else. Their survival utterly depends on believing what their parents and their community tells them. So, bearing all that in mind, how come Osha believes the Jedi, the people who have hunted down her mothers and everyone she knows and who they're running away from, are actually good guys and she wants to be one of them? How would that make sense in any universe, and why would her mother even contemplate allowing her to join them? And yet, that's the core of the entire story. Remove that, make Osha suspicious of the Jedi as she was taught to be, and she remains hidden or refuses to take the test. The Jedi have to go in peace, and no one dies. This is really basic. How do the writers not know this? It's not easy to write a story that works. It's even harder when you delve in fantasy or sci-fi, and you have to add another layer on top of the rules of the world we understand. But that's the writer's job. That's what you're paid to do. If you can't even understand how your own world works and how people's motivations come about, what are you doing being a writer? Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll give you the response you deserve.